The last episode ended with a paralegal walking the most valuable documents in legal history out of a law firm in a tote bag. Remember what happened to him. Merrill Williams had no legal shield, no bounty, and no protection. He was sued, he was hunted, and he spent years under court orders forbidding him from even discussing what he knew. That is what whistleblowing looks like when you do it without a weapon. Now let me show you what it looks like with one. In August of 2002, a quality assurance manager for one of the largest drug companies on earth stepped off a plane in Puerto Rico. Her name was Cheryl Eckard. Her assignment was supposed to last 2 weeks. Fix some manufacturing problems at the company's flagship factory, write a report, fly home. 8 years later, that company, GlaxoSmithKline, agreed to pay $750 million to the United States government. One of its factories was shut down for good, and the federal government handed Cheryl Eckard a check for $96 million. At the time, the largest award ever paid to a single whistleblower in American history. She never leaked a document. She never hid in a parking garage. She walked through the front door of a federal courthouse. And here is the paradox this entire video is built on. A corporation with billions of dollars can beat any opponent it can see coming. The whistleblower is the one opponent it cannot see. Because for 6 years, the lawsuit that would cost GlaxoSmithKline $750 million was sitting in a courthouse file that the company was not allowed to know existed. By the end of this video, you will understand 3 things. First, the 163-year-old law signed by Abraham Lincoln himself that turns ordinary employees into federal bounty hunters. Second, why the corporation cannot fight back because the lawsuit is invisible. The plaintiff is the United States government, and firing the whistleblower only makes the check bigger. And third, why this single legal weapon has clawed back more than $75 billion, and why every corporation in America is exactly one employee's conscience away from writing a check like that. I'm Lenny. This is Lawful Lenny, and on this channel, we don't chase the verdicts. We map the leverage behind them. Let us start with the weapon itself, because the picture in your head is probably wrong. When you hear the word whistleblower, you picture a leaker, someone slipping an envelope to a journalist and praying. That is not what this is. This is a lawsuit, a very specific, very old kind of lawsuit, and it was born in the middle of the Civil War. In 1863, the Union Army had a procurement problem, which is a polite way of saying it was being robbed blind by its own suppliers. Contractors sold the Army barrels of gunpowder that turned out to be filled with sawdust. They sold crates of rifles that could not fire. They sold the same horses to the cavalry twice, and some of the mules they sold were blind. Uniforms were made from a shredded rag material so cheap it dissolved in the rain. The material was called shoddy, and that is literally where the word comes from. Understand the scale of the problem. In 2026, if a company ships you garbage, you leave a 1-star review and get a refund by lunchtime. In 1863, the customer was the United States Army. The product was sawdust where the gunpowder should be, and men were dying because of it. Lincoln's government could not police thousands of contractors in the middle of a war. So on March 2, 1863, Lincoln signed the False Claims Act, and it contained one of the most ingenious incentives ever written into American law. Any private citizen who knew about fraud against the government could file a lawsuit on the government's behalf. And if the case won, that citizen kept a cut of the money. At the time, half. The mechanism has a name, quitam, from a Latin phrase meaning he who sues for the king as well as for himself. Think about what Lincoln actually did there. The Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, and the most terrifying affiliate program in American history. Sign up your employer, earn a percentage of the recovery. Every clerk, every bookkeeper, every warehouse worker in a crooked company was now a potential federal plaintiff with a profit motive. The fraud did not stop because the government got better at looking. It stopped because the criminals could no longer trust their own payroll. Now, the weapon did not stay sharp. In 1943, after defense contractors complained, Congress gutted it. The bounty was slashed, the rules were rigged so that almost no case could survive, and for 40 years, the False Claims Act sat in a drawer. What woke it up was a hammer. In the 1980s, Pentagon spending audits revealed that the Department of Defense had been billed $435 for a hammer, $640 for a toilet seat, $7,600 for a coffee maker. And before you judge the 1980s, check your own receipts. You are living in the era of the service fee, the convenience fee, and the fee for paying your fees. The Pentagon walked so your delivery apps could run. The public was furious, and in 1986, a senator named Chuck Grassley pushed through amendments that did not just restore Lincoln's law, they supercharged it. Here is the modern weapon, and I want you to hold these 3 numbers. The whistleblower, legally called the relator, keeps 15 to 30% of whatever the government recovers. The fraudster pays triple the damages, not what they stole, 3 times what they stole, plus a separate penalty for every single false invoice they ever submitted. And anyone who retaliates against the whistleblower, who fires them, demotes them, blacklists them, owes them double back pay on top of everything else. Since 1986, this one law has recovered more than $75 billion for American taxpayers. That is not a statute, that is an industry. Which brings us back to the woman getting off the plane in Puerto Rico. Cheryl Eckard was not a rebel. She was the opposite, a quality assurance manager, a rule follower by profession, sent by GlaxoSmithKline to a town called Cedra to help fix its largest manufacturing manufacturing plant, a factory pumping out billions of dollars of the company's most famous drugs. The antidepressant Paxil, the diabetes drug Avandamet, an antibacterial ointment used on infants. What she found there horrified her. The water system was contaminated with bacteria. Production lines were mixing up products so that different drugs, in different strengths, were ending up together in the same bottles. Imagine your grandmother's antidepressant bottle with someone else's diabetes pills sitting in it. Tablets were splitting apart, which meant patients were getting uneven doses. Sterile products were not reliably sterile. Eckard did exactly what her job title said. She reported it. She flew back, told her bosses the plant needed to stop shipping, recommended recalls, escalated it up the chain over and over for months. Her 2-week assignment became the longest business trip in pharmaceutical history, and the reward for all that diligence came in May of 2003, when the company eliminated her position. They called it redundancy. She was escorted out of the building for the crime of doing her job too well. And this, right here, is the moment that separates this episode from every underdog story we have told so far. Because in 1994, Merrill Williams in this exact position had nothing but a tote bag and a photocopier. Cheryl Eckard had Lincoln's Law. She called the FDA. And then, in February 2004, her lawyers walked into a federal courthouse in Boston and filed a qui tam lawsuit under the False Claims Act. The legal theory was clean. Medicaid and other government programs had paid for those drugs. The government does not pay for adulterated drugs. Every bottle from that broken factory, billed to a government program, was a false claim. And then, nothing happened. Publicly at least. Because the lawsuit disappeared into something called the seal. Now here is where it gets really interesting. Because the seal is the reason no corporation can stop this. When a qui tam case is filed, it is filed under seal, meaning in secret. The company is not served. The company is not notified. The company's $1,200 an hour lawyers cannot file a single motion because they have no idea the case exists. Meanwhile, behind that curtain, the Department of Justice quietly investigates everything, with the whistleblowers' documents as a treasure map. The seal is supposed to last 60 days. In practice, it gets extended for years. Think about every weapon we have watched Goliaths use in the first 2 episodes. Bury the plaintiff in paperwork. Drag the case out until they run out of money. Depose them into the ground. Every single one of those weapons requires knowing there is a case. The most powerful legal artillery on Earth, and it cannot fire at a target it cannot see. GlaxoSmithKline spent 6 years being sued by the United States government and did not get a vote. The first the public knew of it was FDA agents seizing drugs from company warehouses in one of the largest seizures in the agency's history. In episode 1, I gave you the leverage stack, the 4 weapons that let a David win: discovery, contingency, jury, precedent. Now watch what qui tam does to that stack. Discovery, preloaded. The insider arrives with the documents on day 1. Contingency, written directly into the statute, 15 to 30%, guaranteed by federal law. And the plaintiff? This is the beautiful part. The plaintiff is not a dying widow the company can outspend. When the government joins the case, the plaintiff is the United States of America. The asymmetry that crushed 40 years of tobacco plaintiffs is now pointing the other way. The whistleblower does not fight the giant. The whistleblower introduces the giant to a bigger giant and takes a commission on the fight. In October 2010, it ended. A GlaxoSmithKline subsidiary pleaded guilty to a federal crime, and the company agreed to pay $750 million. The Sidra plant did not survive to see it. It had already been shut down. And Cheryl Eckard's share came to $96 million. Her filing fee, by the way, had been a few $100s. That is the ratio this channel exists for. So, was Cheryl Eckard a patriot or a profiteer? Because the comment section is about to split in half, and I want both camps on the record. One camp says patriot. She begged the company to fix it for months before she ever saw a courtroom. She protected patients the regulators had missed. She lost her career for it, and every cent was earned. The other camp says profiteer. $96 million for reporting problems it was literally her job to report. A bounty system that pays employees to build files on their employers and turns loyalty itself into a market. Patriot or profiteer? One word in the comments. And to the hero camp and the mercenary camp still fighting about Dickie Scruggs under the last video, this is round 3. Yes, I am still reading every reply. Now, why does this matter to you? If you have never seen the inside of a corporate compliance office, this is where the conversation fundamentally changes. The pills in your medicine cabinet are downstream of this exact machine. So is the price of them. Those 75 billion recovered dollars flowed back into Medicare, Medicaid, and the Treasury you fund every April. When the opioid manufacturers we mentioned last episode were finally dragged to the table, whistleblower cases were part of the artillery. And the model is spreading because the government noticed something. Paying insiders works. The SEC built its own bounty program for financial fraud, and it has paid out well over $1 billion, including a single award of $279 million. Defense fraud, hospital billing, pandemic loan fraud, cybersecurity cover-ups, all of it is now hunted by the same weapon. In an economy where everyone has a side hustle, the federal government quietly runs the most lucrative one in America. Somewhere right now, in some company's accounting department, an employee is looking at an invoice that does not add up. Statistically, that is the most dangerous person in the building. One last thing, because this channel deals in the public record, and the record does not do fairy tales, the weapon is real, but the person holding holding it bleeds. Cheryl Eckard spent 6 years in sealed silence, unemployable in the industry she gave her career to. Whistleblowers routinely report blacklisting, divorce, and ruin. And here is the number nobody puts in the movies. The government declines to join most qui tam cases, and most of the declined ones recover nothing. For every $96 million check, there are hundreds of people who lost everything and got no check at all. The bounty is not a lottery ticket, it is combat pay. Sit with that before you pick your camp. So here is the question this entire video has been building toward. For 2 episodes, we have watched corporations lose to outsiders, to lawyers with leverage, and states with treasuries. But the whistleblower is different. The whistleblower is the fortress losing to a single brick in its own wall. A corporation can outspend any opponent it can see, and Lincoln's Law built an opponent that is invisible, government-funded, and already inside the building. So which is it? Does the $96 million check prove the system finally works? That we found a way to make honesty stronger than fraud? Or does the fact that integrity needs a bounty on it prove it was never strong enough on its own? Right where you stand, I am reading. This is Lawful Lenny. We don't chase the verdicts, we map the leverage behind them. And if you think you need a law degree to bring a giant to its knees, the next story is for you. A single mother working as a file clerk, no legal training, digging through water records in a desert town, forced one of America's biggest power companies to pay $333 million, the largest settlement of its kind in American history. They made a movie about her too, and the movie undersold it. How a file clerk with no law degree beat a power giant. That is the next video. Watch that one next. I'll see you in the courtroom.